listen to that song every time I'm about to do something important because that song gets me fired up. That is my time to make the donuts music. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's time to go. Adam, you won that round, sir. So Adam and I have a lot of stories about each other. And backstage, he's telling me all the stories he's going to tell. So I came out here ready to trash Adam Katz in front of 1,400 people. And then he said nothing but nice things, and I was like, oh, okay. I got to elevate to win. I don't know what to do here. I've got so many good cat stories to tell in return, and yet nothing to share. I'm so glad to be here, guys. I was fired up when I heard we were coming to South Florida. I love South Florida. I was born in South Florida. Anybody else from South Florida originally? All right, all 36 of us. Let's have a support group later on. My parents moved us from down here to Sylva, North Carolina when I was still in school. And if you don't know Sylva, North Carolina, that means you're like most people. You wouldn't know where it is. They moved us to a town so small that when they first got a Walmart, not like their second Walmart. I mean, I wasn't like Terry. I didn't live in the big city with a Walmart to go to. They closed school for the day, like the president was coming to town. I still remember my buddy Benji was like, dude, I heard they gonna have tires and a McDonald's, not like next to it, all up in it. It's like, bro, South Florida will blow your mind, man. So I love being here. I love being places where I have history because my internal dialogue kicks it up a notch. And I think everybody should have a good internal dialogue. I don't think a lot of people realize you can have whoever be your internal dialogue. Like Morgan Freeman is my internal dialogue. Andy Dufresne. Well, Stephen has not walked these streets of humidity in some time. I did not bring enough shirts for this event, I'm just telling you. But here's what I'm going to talk to you about today. It's the subject that Mark Aceta assigned, and despite the fact that I tried to convince him about 8 other subjects, I couldn't convince him of anything. So I'm going to talk about this. Oh, is my subject on the board? Oh, man, I ruined the joke. Hang on. That didn't happen. Never mind. It was already on the board. I was given different instructions back. I'm going to talk about persuasion. And it's funny because like when I see stuff like that, it still messes with me because I think about like Stephen Davies from Smoky Mountain High School, Stephen Davies that still has a permanent ban from the public school bus system in Jackson County, North Carolina. Yeah, like if we go to Jackson County and that's the only way we can get somewhere, I'm out. I got an Uber. I cannot ride the public school bus system. So I try to think through that lens. I try and get that off of me, and I think about my buddy Sleeveless Raby from high school. We called him Sleeveless Raby for 2 reasons. One, his last name was Raby, and the other reason you can probably figure out. Never had sleeves, ever. Like, if I go to his funeral and I go to his viewing and he's got sleeves on, I'm going to go get scissors from the funeral director and fix that situation. Just be like, no sleeves on earth can contain you now, friend. Be free. But he would always say, because he was my partner in hijinks and shenanigans, which you always need a good team for shenanigans. And Raby could lift anything, like anything. And he'd always, when we get a group together to pull off a shenanigan or a goings-on, he would be like, dude, man, you're like a great convincer, man. And so that's what I thought I would rename my part. How to Be Like a Really Good Convincer Man by Sleeveless Raby's Buddy. So that's what we're going to get into today. Why do we need to be effective at persuading people? It's what we do. All the stuff that makes us money in this business requires persuasion, selling. You got to get someone to give you money that they currently have, that you don't currently have, and to give you their social security number and their driver's license and basically enough information to become them. All on the first date. That takes persuasion. How about recruiting? You don't know me. You answered an ad I put on the internet, and I'm asking you to meet me at a hotel for a meeting. Yeah, just come on down to La Quinta. It'll be all right. I want to share my vision with you. And building requires persuasion because you got to pull people out of apathy to do something that they're capable of but haven't done yet. Does that make sense? That's why we've got to be persuasive. Highly effective people do this, and this is where we want to get to, and we're always on a scale, right? We're trying to get closer to it. Highly effective people can take one conversation. I've seen Andy do this multiple times. One conversation and have immediate and lasting change happen. That's persuasion. So that's what you're trying to move to, where one conversation can move someone all the way to immediate and lasting change. So when you're thinking about when I'm trying to get good at this, that's where we're moving towards. What do most people do? Ineffective people, they have a conversation and it ends in one of two things. Either generalities and confusion. You ever had a conversation like that? What'd y'all talk about? I don't know. Or worse, more deeply entrenched disagreement because the conversation went bad. That's lack of persuasion. So if you look at those two things as a spectrum we're on, we're trying to get closer to where one conversation can create immediate and lasting change. So what do highly effective persuaders do? This is one of my favorite quotes. I love Winston Churchill quotes. Oratory is a precious gift. Those who wield it enjoy a power more durable than that of a great king. Meaning, the ability to persuade and convince will give you power no matter what the situation. Like, that's a skill worth getting. And when I met Andy 22 years ago, that's what I was trying to get. I was trying to get the skills. Because I know the skills would produce the rewards. Does that make sense? I talk to small-minded people all the time. They're like, what's your contract level? What product you got? I hear you. But if you're bad at persuasion, it doesn't matter. If you're not convincing, it doesn't matter. Well, what's the contract level? 1,000,000%. Oh, I'll join your team. I mean, I can't sell, but with that contract level, I could make zeros of dollars. See, I wanted to learn the skills. This next slide might be the most important slide of the day for me, at least during my talk. It's an important note to Holly. For those of you that don't know, Holly is my wife. We've been married 24 years as of July 3rd of this year. Say what you want, but that girl has staying power. I'm just telling you. She'll stick it out. So, important note to Holly before I begin this presentation. The following presentation contains material that in no way would work on you, nor would I in any way attempt to use it to get my way in any situation ever. That's just the official important notice. I would like to add, besides, even if I tried, a woman of your beauty and intellect, it wouldn't work anyway. So, yeah. So we got the paperwork out of the way. Let's get started. The kid from Smoky Mountain High School talking about Aristotle. So Aristotle said there's three key things you got to have to be persuasive. And so when I'm thinking about trying to make a change happen, I'm thinking about, am I checking all these three boxes? The first is ethos. That's your credibility, and your character. You've got to have that. Interestingly enough, the word ethos is closely related to the Greek word that translates in English habitat, meaning, are you comfortable in your own skin because your character is complete? Right? You ever seen shifty people? Like they're trying to keep all their lives going, we're talking about the opposite of that. Someone that's comfortable in their own skin because they're morally sound. Pathos is emotion. That's where people make changes. And I'm going to come to that in the end, but I'm going to work through all these as we go through the presentation. Where we screw up, where you and I screw up, is logos. We start with reasoning. And here's why. Anything that you and I have come to accept, meaning we made a belief change, we did it emotionally because we trusted the person giving us the information, and then we backed it up with logic. So when we try and take that same belief and get someone to change their mind, where do you think we start? We start at the end. We start with logic. And that makes us terribly ineffective. Number one is big because that rules everything. Without character, no lasting change for good, you just cannot make it happen. It's like when someone doesn't have life insurance and they go to try and sell life insurance. Well, I don't need to get a policy with y'all. See, I got like a $30,000 policy through from State Farm, because back in the day, and it's like, bro, you got a $30,000 policy. How much do you plan on being worth? I want credibility. And I know I've got to work on character, because here's what I know. If ability outgrows character as far as pace, right? Because things grow on pace. If our ability grows at a faster pace than our character, we're a moral time bomb waiting to happen. So that's why number one is key. All right, point number one in being persuasive. We have to genuinely care about the people we're trying to move and what we need them to do. We have to genuinely care about it. I genuinely care about life insurance. As long as it's not hard for me to sell. I genuinely care about it. And I want that family to have that. I want them to have that dignity. I genuinely care about protecting safe money. I don't want someone else's grandma to have to be a Walmart greeter because all her money was at risk in the market. I genuinely care about these things. I genuinely care about the people on my team. When I see people on my team just level off and just stay there, it tears me up. I'm just going, God, dude, you're so talented and you're just pee-peeing it all the way. Not PowerPointing it all the way. Just waste it. Does it make sense? That's where I'm coming from. That's where we have to make sure we come from. And we have to realize, make peace with the fact that we're all selfish beings, right? Someone said, that guy's greedy. And I said, so are you. No, I'm not. And I said, so am I. We all have to realize we're always on a spectrum morally. And so we have to make sure we're always coming back to, if we want to be a powerful, persuasive person, we have to genuinely care about the people and the thing we're trying to get them to do. Here's the reason why. There's 3 questions people are asking themselves about you before they decide to act on anything you tell them to do. Any advice you give, it could be, hey, I seriously think you should put the jelly on the left slice and the peanut butter on the right slice. They're not going to act on anything until they can answer these questions about you and about me. The first is, do you care about me? Do you care about me? Can you help me? See, the first is about character. The second is about ability. Because someone can care for days, but if they're incompetent or a moron, you can't trust them. Does that make sense? Which leads us to the last question they're trying to answer about you constantly. Can I trust you? And here's why we've got to have that on our mind. Until we can satisfactorily answer those 3 questions in their mind, nothing we say will make any difference. People say, what's the script? What do you want me to tell them? What should I say? None of that matters until we can answer those questions. Who was in here for Big Mike's talk early this morning? Telling you, if you were late, you were late. That was some good stuff. Think back to his talk for a second. Why did that talk affect you? I love these cans, by the way. It kind of reminds me of that Coors Light. Sometimes you got to head for the mountains. But why did you let that talk in? Because he answered those questions. Why have you heard other talks and not been affected the same? Well, why do you listen to Andy and Jane? Because they can answer those questions. Does that make sense? So when you're thinking about persuading, if we don't think about answering those questions, nothing else we do matters. I keep putting my thumb on the button they said don't touch. It's like I'm wired for chaos. Here's why character is so important. The stuff we're going to talk about today, you can use it to lead. You can use it to lure someone to your basement to wear them as a people coat. It's the same principles. Gandhi used them. Your local neighborhood sociopath uses them. The difference is just intent. That's why the character piece, that's why the ethos is so important. Now I'm starting to get, now that we covered the character stuff, I'm going to start telling you like how to cheat the game, okay? But in a good way, because the only difference between leadership and manipulation is intent. Create a cadence of agreement. If I'm thinking about what I want you to agree to, I'm going to get you to agree to a few things beforehand. Why? Patterns are hard to break for human beings. If you don't believe me, it always shocks me when someone's on stage. I thought you were sneaking up on me. I got this thing on the back of my head, and it's just making me I feel like someone's sneaking up on me the whole time, and then there was a person there. Anyways, welcome to my world. I'm not sure why you're not a millionaire as well. I got a lot going on up here. Oh, the whole thing about me rolling around naked in money, by the way, let's just address that as a team, shall we? Can we just address that? Okay, first of all, I would never roll around naked in money. Money is disgusting. It's dirty. I mean, if the money had been properly laundered and I knew the money launderer, I do think about taking all of my money and turning it into gold coins and burying it in my yard, and then making people dress up like pirates and give them a treasure map and make them try and find it. I do think about that. Not rolling around in that nasty stuff. So if I want you to agree to something, I'm going to give 3 or 4 things ahead of time and get you in the pattern of going, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. That way when we get to the uh-huh I need, you're already going, uh-huh. Let's do an exercise. And answer out loud. Do you think a child's smile is heartwarming? Yes, let's go with yes. Sorry, the Smoky Mountain High School the debate team, Smoky Mountain High School came out on me, right? The captain of the debate team. You won't fight about it? All right, so let's practice again. Yes. Do you think a child's smile is heartwarming? Does great weather make you happy? Isn't a great meal with people you love amazing? Don't you think this talk is going incredibly well? Think about what went on inside of you. You wanted to say yes even before you saw the question. That's a cadence of agreement. And so when you're trying to convince or persuade someone of something, start with a cadence of agreement. Think about the least effective people you know. What do they start with? Someone says something, they go, it could be random too, like, man, I just had the best bagel this morning. It's like, oh, I hate bagels. It just rained today. I hate rain. Like they start with disagreement and they wonder why they can't convince anybody of anything. A cadence of agreement is like a secret weapon. I'm just telling you. Use powerful pauses. Pausing is powerful. Pausing says several things about you. One, you're confident. Oh, yeah. Think about it. Insecure people can't stand silence. That's why they try and fill the space with words. You project confidence through pausing. Think about argumentative styles. We joked around about the Smoky Mountain debate team. Think about how the least effective people in your life debate things. That's how they debate things. Pausing is powerful. Oh, don't press that button. They should really not put a button on here and then say, don't press this button. That is like against all the Stephen principles. Pausing allows, number one, them to hear what they said. Keep in mind, if you're changing a belief in someone, they're going to say things out loud that they have not yet said out loud. Maybe they've thought them, but they've drowned them in a bucket of denial or repression, but they've not said it out loud. So they need to hear them say it out loud. It allows them to take in a new belief or thought and start to take ownership. That's why scoldy parents don't work. Anybody raised by scoldy parents? All right, scoldy parents, here's how they parent. You're hanging out with the kids you weren't supposed to. They kick open the door. Fill the room with words, right? You know we don't do that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be like that. And then did you change it all from that? Did you go, you know what? Wow. Until you like screamed it at me, I never thought of it like that. Wow. Thank you for sharing your truth with me. I appreciate it. No, you didn't listen to any of it. If someone's going to take in a new belief or have a thought pattern change, it's going to take time. Here's the other thing it says. I've been listening to you. I've been listening enough to process what you're saying. And here's why that's key. The feeling of being loved and being heard are indistinguishable to the average person. It's indistinguishable to the average person, the feeling of being loved and being heard. What makes up the average people? Well, it's 100% of 80% of the people. That's your statistics behind what makes up average people. It's kind of like the statistic I used to sell with. And you might want to write this down. This is solid math. At age 90, nearly 95% of people will have been dead for 12 years. You're going to need a powerful pause after that one. Hey, you say I love you by saying I hear you. That's how we feel. And think about it. The last time you felt heard, didn't you feel loved? Questions, questions, questions. Questions are vital. When you use questions, you're inviting thinking. Hence my first question. Questions are super effective, don't you think? Versus questions are super effective. We could debate that. Here's why. People fight statements that aren't the same or similar to what they already believe. That's how the brain works. We're bombarded by media all day, input all day. Our brains just go, whoop, that doesn't match, whoop, that doesn't match, whoop, that doesn't match, whoop, that doesn't match. That's why questions are vital. Keep in mind, if you're trying to change a behavior, is it likely that they already believe that or somewhat believe it? You're going to need some questions to get there. Statements invite disagreement or agreement. That's a 50-50 toss. And remember, if we're trying to change a belief, it ain't a 50-50 toss. It's like a 95-5 toss. Questions invite thinking. That's why questions are vital. Questions give them the opportunity to own the concept as their own, because if they're going to change behavior from here on out, whose idea does it need to be? A man convinced against his will is what? Yeah, that's what we're getting to here. Use questions to help you unearth incongruencies. Here's why. Unearthed incongruencies create movement. We don't like being incongruent as people, which is why, by the way, change is so hard. When we start getting results that are better than anybody in our circle, we'll make decisions to screw it up and come back because we start to feel incongruent. So if you can use questions to help people unearth incongruencies about themselves, to help them make positive changes, that creates movement. Here's an example. Oops, the red one goes back. They said grab any remote, sir. Oh, no. Oh, we went back to the beginning. All right, hang on. If anybody backstage could help me, that would be awesome. Oh. Yeah, we don't want to go there yet. All right. There. Okay. Don't touch it backstage. I'm in charge now. I am the captain now. Oh, by the way, don't, if your wife lets you take your 6-year-old son to the movies, don't take him to see Captain Phillips. That was a bad call. Still can't believe Adam Katz did that. This was the kind of stuff I had ready to go. All right. Unearthing incongruencies. Why? Because that creates movement. Example, I love my family. I'll do whatever I can to take care of them, but I don't have enough life insurance. That's incongruent. If you attack it with statements, they're going to fight you with statements. You unearth it with questions. That's how you create change. Here's another one. I say I want to be free financially or have a massive impact. It's usually one or the other. I want to be free. I want to impact lives. But like recruit every week? Can you see the incongruence? You're not recruiting every week, but you want to have a massive impact. What are you talking about, bro? You have to unearth that with questions. If you attack it with statements, you'll lose them. Your spouse will lose everything if you don't get life insurance. Or, how soon after your funeral will your spouse struggle to pay your current bills? One invites disagreement or agreement, the other invites thinking. How about this one? You're in a dead-end career. You need to quit insurance, or you need to quit and sell insurance with me. How does that come off? Yeah, I just insulted what you put the last 7 years of your life into. How about this? Do you ever see that changing unless you make a move? See, questions unearth those discongruencies that you'll find. Here's another strategy. Utilize questions that give two winning options. We tend to ask yes or no questions because that's how we were trained. Ask a question that invites two positive answers. Here's a great example. Holly, do you want to go to Rocky's Hot Chicken Shack today? That's my favorite place to go. She feels differently. She can say yes or no. Or, Holly, would you rather go to Rocky's Hot Chicken Shack today or Wednesday? That previous slide was supposed to be redacted. That's why I had the important note to Holly at the beginning there. Next big point, harness the power of emotion. Here's the truth about us as human beings. We're neither thinking nor feeling, but feeling machines that think. That's vital to understanding how to move people. We go back to the beginning. What was Aristotle's three things? Where do we tend to lead? Logos, logic. Can you see why that's ineffective? We're not thinking machines, we're feeling machines that happen to think. So, all decisions are triggered emotionally and backfilled with logic. That's why, and this is especially my engineer friends, I'm a thinker devoid of emotion. I had a guy tell me that one time when I tried to teach this point. He said, emotion doesn't factor into any of my decisions. And I said, just so we're clear, that means you're a sociopath. You can make a decision with zero emotions, you could kill your neighbors. Think about it. The big decisions in life, the decisions you're making this weekend. You might make it and go, well, it makes sense. I should go full-time because, at my current job, I'm actually losing money because of opportunity cost. And that's what you're going to tell yourself afterwards. But know that it was an emotion that triggered it. It's the same thing. If you want to sell a life insurance policy, it's an emotional trigger that they'll backfill with logic. When they explain it to their friends, they're going to tell their friends, well, see, it made sense. You see, you understand Mutual of Omaha, or they're explaining, they're going, well, because with my income level, and of course, if something happened to me, they're going to explain it like that, but no, it's an emotional trigger. Weight loss is the same thing. One of my buddies lost 200 pounds, and not like lost 200 pounds, not like on crystal meth, like lost 200 pounds. I'm scared of trees. I sleep in my oven, but I have lost 180 pounds. No, lost 200 pounds through diet and exercise. Do you know what did it for him? He went to a theme park, and he couldn't fit in any of the rides. Now, logic says, well, I should do this because this, and this, right? But emotion's the trigger. Same thing with anybody we're trying to persuade. How do we get emotion flowing? Stories. Stories unlock emotions. Stories sell. Facts tell. Powerful stories. Here's the three ingredients you want to make sure are in any story you're using to sell or convince someone. Three very powerful emotions woven into every story: anxiety, surprise, hope. If a story has all three of those components, it becomes a powerful story that can move people emotionally, and when they move emotionally, they make changes. People will fight facts, but they'll listen to stories. That's as true as gravity is. If I jump off this stage, I'm not going sideways. Why? Because gravity. People will fight facts, but they will listen to stories. That's as true as gravity. Word choice is massive. I learned this when Holly and I were in the Dominican Republic. I was killing it. And I mean killing it. Like I hadn't done anything annoying or immature or possibly troublesome in like an hour. We're laying there. The moonlight's coming in the window. The palm trees are moving in the wind. So it's creating these waves of light over her face. And I said with perfect tonality, I mean the kind of tonality that even Barry White would be like, that makes me a little uncomfortable. So my tonality was on point. I said, baby, you are so beautiful in the dark. Yeah. Just to save myself some conversations afterwards, because people will come up to me if I tell that story and they'll be like, you shouldn't have said that. I was like, yeah, I know. I live in the future with you. But my tonality was on point. Less is more. Think about this. I have a dream, Gettysburg Address. We overthink how long those are. I Have a Dream was only 17 minutes. 17 minutes. One speech that changed civil rights. 17 minutes. Gettysburg Address was 2. Most of us can repeat it. Less is more. Strong words, slower pace. That's how highly effective persuaders work. By the way, you don't have to give 1,000 reasons. People that are convinced of their beliefs don't give 1,000 reasons. Who gives 1,000 reasons? Crazy people. We're all related to people like that. They feel strongly about everything. From political issues to leafy vegetables, they got a strong opinion. And they can't give you one reason why. You know why? Because they got 1,000 reasons why. Oh, you're going to order the Caesar kale salad? Okay, all right. Call me crazy, but you know what? You be a puppet of big kale. You know what? That's fine. Let me tell you why kale is evil. And they'll give you 1,000. That's what crazy people do. People with the truth don't have to give you 1,000 reasons. Excellence doesn't require a lot of explanation. You know what? I think it's because I touched the button I wasn't supposed to touch. I almost touched it again. Sorry, don't tell me not to touch that button. Here's another thing when you're using words. Speak in the present tense, because what that does is highlight the continuing truth of what it is you're trying to explain. When you explain things in a past tense, it leaves the present tense or future usefulness of that up for debate. If you speak with a present tense, it recalls to mind the truthfulness of what you're trying to say. Use identity words. We're talking about nouns instead of verbs. Let me give you some examples. Here's why. People value being a good member of their group, whatever that group is, more than they value being factually correct. Here's some examples. That's what great fathers do. Not, hey, buy this life insurance as a verb. That's what great fathers do. That's what great mothers do. When you're trying to create behavior change, don't say can't, say don't. So if you got someone that's a hallway philosopher on your team and you're trying to change their behavior, don't say, you can't be out there in the hallway giving a seminar in the hallway. I always come off as Yosemite Sam when I do that. I don't know what's going on there. I think I need to talk to my therapist about maybe some issues I have. If you say can't, it's up for debate. Here's how you handle that. Hey, leaders don't. That's not up for debate. Linguistic similarity creates trust. Talk how they talk. This is why people that want to sound intelligent struggle to be effective. Use linguistic similarity. We call it, mirror and match. Figure out how they talk. Use the same cadence. Now, don't be obvious, because, some people do that. It's like, bro, objective reality says that is not your country accent. Like, just stop. But you can mirror cadence without mirroring accent. That linguistic similarity creates trust and creates calm. Start abstract, then move to concrete when you're trying to get a new concept into people's minds and hearts. Abstract allows for them to be open to agreement. Move to concrete so that you can sink in that agreement. And this is, again, I talked about in the previous point, the brain sorts what it's going to hear based on what it matches. That's why starting abstract, moving concrete is how you persuade. Once you make connection with people, move to us and we. No more you and I. Social proof. What are other people like you doing? Use words that generate social proof. Stop hedging. The ums, the ums, the stop that. Better to have a pause. And once the point is made, use no vague terms. Definitely, obviously, clearly. If you don't want to hear it, say it first. How does that work? Here's a perfect example. You're with an older couple. They're not healthy. They want $100,000 of life insurance. Not going to happen. They can't afford it, nor could you get it. If you don't beat them to it, what are they going to say? Well, if I can't cover the whole thing, don't make sense to cover much. Don't make sense to do anything, right? Beat them to it. Hey, real quick, before we even go over prices, y'all know how life insurance works, right? I mean, the more trips you and I take around the sun, and the more times that doctor writes on that prescription pad, the more expensive it gets. Most folks in your situation don't even try and cover the whole thing. It doesn't make financial sense. What they will do is buy each other some time. Does that make sense? Yeah. Oh, thank God it makes sense. You won't believe some of the stuff I hear from some of these husbands out here. And not kidding. In front of their wife, they'll say stuff like this. Well, if I can't get the whole thing covered, I ain't going to get nothing. Right? Who would say that in front of their wife? It allows them to examine the absurdity of the position in the third person. That's the magic there of bringing it up first. They can examine the absurdity of it in third person. I'm going to give you two magic phrases and we'll move to our second to last point. Because. Ironically, it doesn't matter what you say after because. Why? Because it works. Try it. Because. Does that make sense? I already used that one. Magic phrases of agreement, which again would never work on Holly, nor would I ever try to use any of those in any debate whatsoever. If you're married to a small gypsy, you got to keep your eyes on her. I made that joke one time and someone said, you shouldn't make a joke about your wife being a gypsy. That has certain connotations. I was like, they're not connotations, they're stereotypes, and they're true. If I go on a work trip for longer than 3 days, all of my furniture moves. Like, just heads up. Use the power of repetition. Repetition is probably the most underutilized persuasion tool we've got. Repetition has been used to propagate sociopathic diatribes and criminally negligent stories for centuries. Why? Repetition is a stronger argument than truth. And I'll prove it to you. You ever thought about nursery rhymes? People have been saying these things for years. How about Rockabye Baby? Sing it with me if you know it. Rockabye baby in the treetops. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. And down will go, baby cradle. First of all, it's criminally negligent that you had a baby in a tree. Second of all, you suck at picking out branches. What branch did you put that on? You didn't strap the baby in, nothing, no. Also, I'm troubled by your list at the end, right? If a baby falls out of a tree, end of list of important things that fell out of that tree, yet we end the song with cradle and all. We wanted to list that. That's just the criminally negligent part. It's sociopathic. Even the Riddler from Batman would be like, bro, I give mysteries and riddles to my victims, but singing that to a baby is messed up. Singing that to a baby is the same as walking into a bank and singing about banks you've robbed in the past. Put your hands up and get on the floor. If you move, I'll shoot you in the face. Once my bags are full, I will be gone, and so will your savings. Goodbye, you all. Peter's worse, right? What's the story about Peter? Fan of winter squash. He loved that pumpkin. Relationship issues. Had a wife, couldn't keep her. What did he do? Yeah, that's a federal crime. You're going to federal prison. You will not learn a new language kind of prison. You might learn a new language, but not the one you want to learn. You're going to bad prison. I think, too, of like, if you had to create like a movie out of a nursery rhyme, you'd see how absurd it is. Like Adam Driver, probably in the Peter movie, like, why won't you stay? And Daisy Ridley like comes to in a pumpkin, and she's like got seeds all over, and she's like, Peter, what did you do? It's insanity. And we repeat it to our children. I'll give you one more. Picture this movie. Jason Statham is the butcher. He's all covered in blood with a big knife. Vin Diesel is the baker. He's got a hat on, fondant bag, finishing the cake. It's all about family. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the candlestick maker. Coming to theaters this summer. Rub-a-dub-dub. It's about to get bubbly. I could keep going, but y'all understand how insane nursery rhymes are. Why would we repeat that to our kids? It's the power of repetition. So while repetition is a stronger argument than truth, imagine the power of repetition of a truth. We go all the way back to the beginning. We genuinely care about the people that we're bringing into this business. We genuinely care about the families we're trying to help. That's who we're trying to persuade. When we bring that genuine care and we utilize strategies to be persuasive, guys, the business will get insane. Hope what I shared with you today will help you. I know it's helped me a ton. Guys, Holly and I love y'all. We'll see you.